Hello and welcome to the Binge Thinker episode 23. My name is Jameel Raymond. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here as always. Today's episode is a solo one. I've had a couple of great podcasts and interviews with Fia and a couple of people recently. You've got a lot more banked up, ready to go. But I just want to have a bit of a preamble and a bit of a binge thought. Go back to basics, catch up on a couple of things in life, and then I also want to share with you the Psychedelic Check-In. This is something that I do fairly regularly, and I think it's a very, very potent tool to help analyze your life and give you self-awareness in your own life about what is challenging you. Definitely not for amateurs, but a pretty interesting advanced practice that I think could be of value to certain people and probably very likely the psychedelic enthusiasts that are my following. But first of all, let's touch base on what's going on with ACN and what's going on in my life in that sphere. So some good news that I've got for you is ACN hit 10K followers on TikTok the other day, which I'm very happy about. It's been quite an interesting journey to get there in the last 3 months. Now, it's a good thing. I'm celebrating it. I definitely am. But there is some interesting things to consider about the scale of social media now and how much it takes to operate as an entity in the new digital world when it comes to creating reach, attention, the attention economy, all the things that I've talked about here recently. So I'm going to muse on a couple of things because I think it's important, particularly for those who are in the creative industry who understand now, well, everyone should by now, that digital and social is the way forward for marketing purposes. That's definitely something that I've lent into over the last 6+ months. I've had to sharpen my tools as a content creator or just actually have them to begin with. So I wanted to take a bit of a milestone analysis of what's going on. So with TikTok, Instagram, 10K followers on TikTok, 2K on Instagram, nice little progress there. But there's things to consider about the future of engagement. Now, if you are on the internet for any admissible point of time, what the fuck am I talking about? If you're on the internet in general, you know that TikTok has absolutely dominated the social media space. And it has currently now entered into a depth of engagement or a monetization phase. And what I mean by that is initially TikTok was trying to steal market share of Instagram, Meta, Facebook, all that sort of stuff for quite some time now. And how did it do that? By the lure of massive followings, by the lure of easy attention. Because it was just acquiring the share of market from the other giants in the space, it had to use desperate tactics of the algorithm being very susceptible to getting you new followers, getting you new likes, etc. And a lot of the major creators that are on TikTok now have massive followings, on average way more than a significant chunk of Instagram's followers at the peak of their game. And I'm talking about the general population, not your big celebrities are going to have a couple of million followers just because they are who they are. I'm talking more at the creator and the non-famous level of people that are influencers and creators on Instagram. So now that TikTok has dominated the market, you can tell that by the way that Instagram is acting in the market, it's essentially lost its way. And you can see it's lost its way because it's had to start chasing a competitor as opposed to focusing on its unique selling proposition of Instagram. How do we know that? Because through the algorithm, the God-blessed algorithm, the algorithms in Instagram are now basically all in on Reels. Reels being the competitor to TikTok with its vertical format, full screen view, that sort of stuff. And that's been evidenced by the varying amounts of content that I've put up on ACN over the last few months, and then keeping an eye on what other people are doing, as well as other sources that are in the social media analysis business that I regularly follow. So basically, anything that's over 90 seconds, over the maximum reel length on Instagram, gets zero traction. Carousels and images still get a medium amount, but it's basically reels or nothing. Even now, recently, with Instagram changing to a full screen feed, that is the content taking up the full screen. They're basically TikTok light. Now, that is a concern because Instagram used to be about polished content, particularly around images. But now they have transitioned into a video platform, but are not a unique video platform. And that's the problem when I said before about Instagram losing its way and basically not focusing on why it has been so special to its consumers in the first place. And that basically means the end for Meta in general, or at least a significant downswing in its value and its capability. Facebook is now MySpace, Instagram is becoming Facebook, and now TikTok has taken its place as the primary platform of attention and the social media market. And TikTok knows this because of the way that it is moving into other competitive markets. It's moving into YouTube's market by allowing videos up to 10 minutes. Even YouTube is countering that with shorts, allowing very similar format reels and TikToks to be posted on its shorts platforms, which helps drive traffic into the general YouTube platform as well. So what does that mean for creators nowadays? It means that now TikTok is the short game and YouTube is the long game when it comes to being an effective creator in the industry now. And what I mean by that is that these are the primary two platforms that you should be focusing on if you are getting into the content creation game. The challenge around that is there's this challenge and this annoying part of having to multi-platform your content. Therefore, having vertical and physical aspects of your content and then aligning it to various degrees of both. So with that, and hang on, where am I going with that? Yeah, so TikTok's the short game, YouTube is the long game. The reason why TikTok is the short game is because, again, they are still funneling that massive growth. It is still the new proving ground for content creation, whatever's going on in the market right now. TikTok is starting to now monetize its reach by decreasing its reach in its algorithms and now implementing more TikTok for business. So very similar to Instagram, the glory days, mid 2010s. It was much easier to get Instagram followers than it is now. Why? Because why would they give you the reach of your entire following when they can decrease it and monetize the rest and you pay for your extra reach? That's the reality. It's been like that for a while if you've been someone that's in the paid spend part of Instagram or any social media platform, really. Facebook did the same thing. Instagram did the same thing. And now TikTok is doing it now because how else are you going to pay for all the shit that's going on? And really, they just stole this idea from broadcast advertising, right? There was a great clip from Earn Your Leisure, which is a great people of color fucking Instagram and creator that talk about financial independence. I probably talked about them in the past here, but they put up this great clip about the idea behind why Instagram and social media platforms limit their reach and make you pay for it. Because TV did the same thing. If you've got a million followers and you got to access 1 million followers at a time, that's a fucking insane amount of reach for virtually nothing. If you wanted to get the reach of 1 million people, for example, in the Australian market now, that's actually quite difficult in broadcast media because most TV shows on average are getting, 700,000 for the news. That's the highest grossing show as far as viewers in the Australian market right now. It used to be over 1 million. Now it's on average between 400,000 and 600,000. So if you know that you're reaching 600,000 people, the broadcasters will charge an amount for your ads and for that reach to that customer base for a set amount. Now, the same thing applies in social media because the reach is way more significant on social media. So why wouldn't they monetize that and limit the reach and make you pay for it? And that kind of sucks, but of course it has to be that way. How else do you intend to pay for all the costs of running a business, hosting all this content? Think about the millions of hours of videos and all the storage that takes up on servers all around the world. There's some significant costs around that. And particularly because the archiving of this data is not cheap from 1 billion active users, it's fucking expensive to run an organization like this. That's just the reality of it. What I'm saying is you can't necessarily hate on them for trying to make some money on the platform. What I'm more concerned about is that it sucks for us because it's a bait and switch. It's a strategic bait and switch with what is possible on the platform, right? So they give you all the benefits for free up front. Obviously, you need to have great content to match that. But then they go, hey, great content. If you wanted to keep playing and get that depth of reach and whatnot, you're going to have to pay a little bit more for it. And that, can be quite significant in the scheme of things. And then something you need to also understand as a creator, so to speak, or in a creative industry, most of the time you are not making a livable income for 3 to 5 years. And that's pretty standard, not just for digital creators or people in digital business. That's the reality of any business. Is in the first 3 years, you're probably not going to be necessarily making money. Definitely in the first 1 to 2, you're not going to be making money, or at least breaking even on your costs. So the structure of a small business does not get discarded because you're in a digital platform as opposed to a bricks and mortar setup. So, and that's the thing, is that, these creator funds, there's been this land rush, this gold rush towards being a creator on social media and whatnot. People are trying to quit their jobs because they put up a bunch of TikToks and great bits of content. But converting that value into something that is livable when you factor in what's actually required in running your own business, you're not making money. I know for a fact you're not making money for a couple of years. So don't quit your fucking day jobs if you're thinking about becoming a creator or a content creator, because the reality is you're starting again. You're changing careers. And if you're at the bottom of a career, then of course you're going to be paid a pittance or make fuck all because you don't know how to generate value in the ecosystem yet. And the people that you do see are successful in this space, right? For example, in comedy, you've got people like Blake Pavey and Ruben Solopatius who are, absolutely blew up during the pandemic, and I fucking am very happy for them. They are the exception, not the rule. But, people find that reality when it comes to a grinding halt when they try and put their fucking multitudes of fucking trendy TikToks on board, and they're like, oh, why have I only got 150 followers, 200 followers? Because it's not that easy. It's not that easy to create and deliver value that's unique in the market. And that's what people don't recognize, is that the value that's in being a creator now versus an influencer is very different. So I think it's important to demarcate the difference between a creator versus an influencer. So influencers came to rise because of Instagram. You can almost basically link influencing to the Instagram era when it comes to social media, right? And a lot of these influencers, well, if you think about the typical archetype of an influencer, it was really just people living their best lives aesthetically in front of the camera, And for some reason, fucking morons, the cattle class, get sucked into it because they're pretty and they're hot. And very few of them in the traditional influencer archetype had much to value besides their looks. Some of them were actual genuine creators, even though the concept of a creator has been on the fringe of media until quite recently as we enter the new phase of the creator economy. So they've just been tiddling away whilst the influencers have been, showcasing their shitty brands and their coffee scrubs and their fucking skincare products and whatever bullshit you see in your feed from day to day, where they've reigned supreme. But with the transition of aesthetic to authenticity in social media, creators have a greater opportunity in the spotlight, and they can deliver a lot more actual value to market because the creator is actually creating something of value. They're not just pretty, right? A lot of the creators that you see now are delivering value into the market for free, generally by providing some sort of value upfront. That could be insight into their industry or their niche. Maybe it is just interesting content that is very unique to who they are. Those are the things that are happening right now in the creator game. And the difference now commercially between the influencer and the creator is that the influencer was at the mercy of the commercial partnerships that they had with brands that wanted to use them and leverage their attention through their following and their reach to sell a product. And that's been the name of the game. So, in a way, in old school terms, you might have called them a sellout. But hey, we're all for sale. We're all selling our time and our resources in exchange for money, right? That's what being an employee is. So the concept of selling out is a bit of bullshit, really. That's just for people who are fucking hating because they're selling out for a lot less of their time for the money they get. I said that right? They're selling out for a lot less money for their time. There you go. But now the creator has the ability to create something that's unique to them. And the massive opportunity ahead is that the infrastructure and the systems that are around give the opportunity to cut as many middlemen out of the picture as possible. And also, you could probably sell something that is more aligned and probably have more integrity to who you are and what your personal brand is, and get a significant amount more of the money that's involved in that transaction. Because, for example, if you're an influencer, right, and you get $1,000 to plug something on your IG, that's great. But the marketing, like the company that paid you that $1,000 probably knows it's making $5,000 to $6,000 from one of your posts based on the revenue it generates from your attention, right? So you're getting a fraction of what your potential output can do for you. On the creator side, if you have that attention and you have that following, if you can create a product, in particular a digital product, which has little to no overheads, you have the opportunity to make a shitload more money out of that product because you can sell it directly to your follower base and your market. So cutting out all those middlemen, any intermediaries, allows you to make a shitload more money if you are delivering value into the market. But if you're not, then you're just another fucking idiot, maybe, hopefully not just flashing your ass to get more likes. Now, that sounds fucking great, right? That you could have a multitude of revenue streams based on the value you bring to market and the various facets of your personality and what makes you unique as an individual versus the bullshit of, having to put on a facade as an influencer, right? Although influencers, love to put those, hey, it's not just about being pretty all the time. I have sad days too. I have my problems too. Yeah, no shit. But you're also contributing to the problem of the facade of everyone is happy and beautiful except me on social media. So shut the fuck up. That's a little vitriol that's been sitting in the nervous system for a bit. But I just hate vapid, you know? I hate a vapid motherfucker. I can't deal with a dumb bitch. I really can't. Anyway. Where was I going with this? Motherfucker. Okay, yeah, here we go. So there is a significant amount of value in the market for creators to make a healthy, independent living, to be financially free, and the boom time for that is coming right now. There are plenty of people who are early adopters that are doing well. Fantastic. Like I've said here, you got to believe in abundance. There's enough for everyone to go around. Why? Because if you focus on what's uniquely you and what you are, your value proposition has no competition. People appreciate you for you. The share of wallet in the media landscape over the next few years is going to be extremely fragmented. Because individuals, I've talked about hyper-personalization here in the fucking pod before, people are going to pick and choose what they consume when they want it, and you've just got to be someone that wants to be part of that, right? And that can come through Patreon, that can come through YouTube, that can come through sponsorships, that can come through live shows, whatever it is, okay? But here's the biggest challenge that creators overlook. And I've spoken to a few creators and comedians who are at this phase now that are facing these challenges. It's one of their biggest problems, is that because all of the front end and the middleman functions are now can be dissipated and you can minimize that pathway between you and your customer, all of those functions now become a back-end requirement for you as a creator. Okay? Those were in there for a reason. You got an agent because you didn't know how to reach out to the big venues. So what do you have to do now? You've got to reach out to the big venues, or, you know, maybe they notice you. Very possibly, but you still have to create that engagement. All of the marketing that's involved, and all of the product development that's involved in whatever you're creating. All of the business management when it comes to finances and taxes and accounting. Okay? Even just scheduling all your life all becomes your responsibility as a singular creator, because the vast majority of creators, you know, I'm talking 90% plus, are just people like me, just single individuals, you know, maybe a couple of groups, but only the fucking top 1 to 2% of creators would actually have a business team behind them, right? You've seen the Inspired Unemployed, Dan Gorringe in the Australian market, these sorts of people, you know, they've got managers and marketing teams behind them now, which is great, cool. But I can say for a fact that they were struggling with that sorts of thing 6-12 months ago before they actually blew up. So really, the biggest, once you've hit a certain phase of you've got these creative outputs, you've locked into who you are as an individual, you know what you're about when it comes to creating and who you are as a creator. Your next problem to convert that attention into monetization is the business processes behind that. And from experience, being a producer, being someone that actually has a business background, has to deal with people, that is the biggest skill gap at the moment. It's not about the creativity. Everyone wants to be in front of the fucking camera. Everyone wants to have the fucking smiles and the handshakes and the cool shit and the transitions and the blah, blah, blah. But you tell me how to fucking put a robust statement, right? You ask a fucking comic to understand what their tax liability is, or how to generate a sales funnel, or even how to develop a website that looks pretty and effective, that has high-ranking SEO. Or you know how to set up a Shopify platform that sells your products and then creates an automated distribution platform for your content through a cloud platform that hosts it, right? Most of that went over a lot of your heads right now, But those are the things you need to consider and we'll have to look at in the future. And I can tell you now, it's going to fucking be difficult because people don't want to learn the business skill. They just think I'm going to be famous and people are going to give me money for what I do and my little ha-has and my jokes. But the reality is you need to create the systems around you to bring that money in. And then you have to manage it, right? The benefit of being a creator is that you get all of the value that you put out into market back directly into your pocket. The greatest challenge is how the fuck do you manage that, right? That's the benefit of being an employee. You get a wage, you get a commission, and the corporation takes care of the rest. Now, if you want to be your own person, understand your own freedoms, I need to understand what these processes are in the front end that now become yours to own and manage. Now, you don't have to own and manage them yourself, right? You can delegate and outsource, and that's what you should be doing. As soon as you've got the affordability to delegate and outsource your non-essential processes to run your business while you focus on revenue and activity generating activities. Yeah. That's a key component of entrepreneurism. As much as I hate that word, it's just the reality of what I do and the space that I operate in. And it's just a basic business function, right? Something that I focus on a little bit now is the concept of show business, right? Show business. There is a business to show business. And guess what? The business part is bigger than the show part. It's all of the lead up and all the infrastructure and all the process and all the effort that gets to that point. And it's difficult and it's not that fun. It's challenging. As someone that has to produce shows, right, the non-fun part, so comics can do the fun part, which is entertain an audience, I understand those challenges inherently. And it's a thankless, shitty job sometimes. And I'll tell you fucking what, this is a bit of a rant. Comics don't fucking appreciate it. I had someone pull out who was fucking pestering me for months to get a spot. I give him a spot, I give him a chance, okay, for a paid gig, for a fucking paid gig. 2 hours before the show, there's a group chat set up on Facebook Messenger. They know the gig is coming. I've asked them multiple times to confirm if they're available or confirm any details I need for the show performances-wise. 2 hours before the show, they go, oh, I've double booked myself. Next time, guys, love heart. That's it. No apology and a very bold presumption that I'm going to book them again for another show when they have fucking thrown me a fucking curveball less than 2 hours to show time whilst I'm still preparing the other shit of the show that's required. The tech and remaining sales, making sure that all these fucking cats are herded into one place. And this fucking idiot has the presumption to just go, hey, I've double booked myself, saying that, hey, I've got something that's more important than this paid show, and I'm going to choose that instead of this. I'm not sorry about it, but next time I will be around for the show. Guess what, fuckhead? There's not going to be a next time. And if you find out who you are and you see this, talk to me about it. Come at me. All right? The sheer disrespect. Fuck, that felt good to get out. So, what is, we talked about before, actually, I want to circle back to this. Something that's very interesting to me as someone that has to keep a constant eye on what's happening in the digital world and the social world is the transition and the potential killing of Patreon. And what I mean by that is that YouTube now has an option, a limited option, but we'll probably release it in the near future, to create a paywall in YouTube for premium uncensored content. Now, that is Patreon's value proposition, right? A direct to consumer exchange platform. You can put whatever the fuck you want, say whatever the fuck you want, do whatever the hell it is you want, and pay a fee. And then Patreon takes a commission for the transaction and the hosting, and everyone wins. And that's been quite useful over the last 3 to 5 years for people that have been in the creator space. But now, actually, to take a half step back, so a lot of comedians, a lot of content creators, particularly people who are creating content that does not fit YouTube's term of service for adult content, drug content, sex content, whatever it is, that has been a safe haven to help monetize a premium solution for the consumer. But now that YouTube is now creating this premium channel, it's very, very dangerous to Patreon's value proposition because you've created efficiency in the procurement process. And what I mean by that is convenience always wins. If you create a more convenient way to get from A to B, A being the customer's identified problem and B the solution, you are very, very likely to win out every time. If your way is easier and is better and is simpler and ticks more of those boxes, people will pay the difference in the premium for that efficiency, right? Convenience, I've talked about this in an earlier pod, I can't remember which one, about, it's just one of the key value propositions that always works. And look at 7-Eleven. I think that's what I used last time. 7-Eleven, right? It's a convenience store. You pay a premium for what they've got. Why? Because they can give it to you when you need it. Look at Uber Eats. Look at Uber, right? Disruption in the digital world has been about mastering the supply chain and logistics chain from customer want to customer satisfaction. So instead of customers having to go to Patreon to get their premium content, they can just go onto the same platform they've likely seen their content creator in the first place, which is YouTube, and access it from there. Patreon is in the way. It's inefficient. It's an inconvenience now. And by the time the consumers adapt to that, to that process, which won't take long because they go, I can just go here now, click, then Patreon's in a lot of trouble. But as a creator, that creates more opportunity for you to monetize, right? On YouTube, you can start monetizing your shows and your content after 1,000 subscribers. And now there are more and more tools to monetize through the platform itself, through this content, premium content solution. And that's why YouTube is the long game as well, because YouTube is now the habit that has been replaced from TV, right? The generational habit of us watching a screen has transitioned from television to the screen, and the biggest screen that we've got is YouTube. And that's what the Zers are doing, and that's what post-Zers will be doing as well. And even the millennials, right? I'm a millennial, and I don't even have free-to-air TV plugged in. I just stream shit, and most of the time it's YouTube. So the habit is already there. So YouTube is going to dominate the macro, and that's been referenced and been validated by its actual growth, quarter-on-quarter growth for users, downloads, and revenues consistently since its inception, right? And particularly all of the emerging markets, right? That's the big scary part about this, is that back in the day, back when I was, back in my glory days, now these are my glory days now. You think about it, 10, 15, 20 years ago, just in general, when TV was the primary media stream, it was fragmented by localization. It was fragmented by the fact that each country had their own TV channels, and then they were regionalized, right? But now, thanks to the internet, they're not regionalized. They're regionalized by language, but the platform, the broadcast platform to watch them on now is centralized, and that centralized platform is on YouTube. For example, Mr. Beast, one of the biggest YouTube creator, has started releasing his content in other languages to attain more market share, more global market share, because he's already dominating the English-speaking market. But guess what? The English-speaking market is one of the top 3 markets globally when it comes to language. The other one being Spanish, and Mandarin could be number 1. And then there could be a Hindi in there as well. So you've gone from, the potential reach of maybe 2 billion to 3, and that billion is a fucking lot. It's a big difference. And that's just one creator. So imagine what YouTube has the potential for us in terms of reach at the global level, because it is the platform. It is, it almost has reached the point of, I talked about this before, what's it called? Geronicide or something like that. Essentially where it's like, instead of searching for it, Google it. Instead of get a bandage, get a Band-Aid, right? When a brand has become so ubiquitous within its category that it has become the most prominent use, an example of the category, right? And that's what you want. You want that level of dominance, and you fucking won the game. So YouTube is winning the game. It will continue to win the game. It's already dominated and permeated the English-speaking markets, and it will continue to dominate the global market for the next 5 to 10 years until there is another platform that somehow can create more efficiencies. But that is very unlikely, because now it's not, the majority of big tech and most of the digital industries are dominated by Amazon, Google, Apple, Microsoft, and Meta, right? I think they have a name for all of them all. I forget what they're called. They're like the big 5 in big tech, right? Meta's on the way out. It's tumbling. Google will attain most of that market share. Microsoft and Apple will continue to dominate the markets for consumer and business technology. Apple in consumer, Microsoft in business. And it'll just keep growing and growing, and it'll become it'll be an oligarchy. I don't know. It's definitely not a monopoly, but it's probably an oligarchy, just a bunch of very, very powerful platform economies that dominate the tech space. And the reason why that is, again, going back to convenience, is because people don't want to think about, and the average consumer doesn't want to think about having to relearn how to use certain things, right? They want integrated, seamless, simple experiences. So each of those organizations will continue to create new products in emerging markets, in emerging solutions, and continue to dominate, because the value proposition is the capability of them as a platform, plus the integration of that new solution into their existing ecosystem. And that's why, for example, when I start investing money into stock in the next, 3 months, I'll be investing in those big tech companies, because we are on the, I've said this before, we are at the precipice of the creator economy. We're at the precipice of the 4th industrial revolution. And the operating platforms behind those technologies, the management of those technologies, will be largely dominated by Google, Apple, and Microsoft. They're going to be the big 3. There's probably space for another 4 in there. Who knows what that is? But they've all got their own significant shares in different places. And that is where I think we are going over the next few years. And I think it's important for creators to understand the macro of the economy, because it's extremely valuable to understand as you grow into the future and become your own individual, the own business of you, the own corporation of you, essentially, is what you're doing as a creator. And that's what I'm aiming for with my own creations and Aussie Comedy Network, as you can see on if you're on video, my very nice mic flag, is that it's important to know these things so you know where to hop, right? You know what to leverage in the future as you move forward and grow as an individual. So yeah, there's my nice little rant. Well, not rant. There was a little bit of a rant in there. But my ponderings about the future of the creator economy, where it's going, where you need to be, and what you should be leveraging to maximize your growth in this economy. So let's talk about something not so serious, shall we? Well, it is serious in its own way, but it's not so boring, businessy, technical, right? Let's get weird. So, the Psychedelic Check-In, right? I wanted to share this with you guys because I think it's something that's quite unique to me. I don't think there's many other people that I know who do this. This is definitely one of my more experimental projects when it comes to my generating self-awareness, self-actualization, all that good shit that I focus on a daily basis. And I think it's a tremendous tool for individuals to do. It's definitely not for the faint of heart, the faint of mind, people that are new to psychedelics. All right, I will say that, and I'll go through the other warnings later on. Right. So, what is the Psychedelic Check-In? So, this is something that I have started doing since my little epiphany almost 3 years ago now. Wow, time flies when you're having fun. So, essentially, the Psychedelic Check-In is me taking some time off. I shut the world out. I write down some questions about myself and where I'm going. And I take a psychedelic to kill off the ego and kill off the bullshit that prevents me from accessing the deep inner truth. And what I mean by the deep inner truth is, there is deep sacred intelligence inside us that has been passed on from, whether it be generational intelligence from our own previous experiences as an energetic force, or how else would I put this? Just the things if you accumulated over time as far as resourcing, knowledge, etc. And the ego can get in the way of these truths, whether it be being in denial of how you feel about a situation. Maybe your nervous system and your ego has, blocked off and subjugated, or what's the word I'm trying to say here? Basically, when your brain goes, we're just going to shut off those traumatic memories and that traumatic background for now. Repressed. There it is. Repressed. These repressed memories, these traumatic events that are subconsciously affecting your ability to be your best self. Maybe you're hiding some fundamental truths about what's happened to you as a child in your developmental years that creates the trauma that influences and impacts the way you live your life today. Again, we've talked about many times that trauma is one of the biggest influences in how we operate our lives day to day. It definitely impacts our subconscious efforts and thoughts, and that permeates into our conscious thoughts, into the stories we tell ourselves in our inner narrative, right? So this is a very deep and, this gets deep into the operating system of your existence, your identity, and basically takes a tinker around, right? You pull some shit out, maybe you find something new. I always find something new. That's why I do it. And yeah, it's just a really potent tool for self-analysis that I recommend, that I do. So every 6 months, I do this. I just did one last week, and that's why I thought it was pertinent now to have a discussion about it. I will continue to do so until I find a reason not to. But hey, I'm always searching for questions, always searching for answers, rather. So who knows? But I guess, to take a backward step, psychedelic medicine or psychedelics as a source of medicine, as a therapeutic benefit, has been known for some time. definitely not in the mainstream, right? We know that psychedelics have been demonized by government, by, the conservatives, by, the general market. Just, there's been the war on drugs. You've associated psychedelics with a bunch of dirty hippies rolling around in the mud in Woodstock, all that sort of shit. But there has been, over the last 30 to 40 years, and most particularly in the last 3 to 5 years, increasing evidence and a positive push towards the therapeutic benefits of psychedelics. That's been predominantly been pushed by an organization called MAPS. So MAPS is the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. So they're like the formal, more business-friendly side and the red tape friendly side of saying, hey, legitimately, we do believe that psychedelics have a benefit. Health boards, governments, global initiatives. Here's our evidence to suggest that. So they're the business-friendly version of, hey man, it's good for you, bro. Fucking take a tab and find out for yourself. And in particular now, psychedelics have become more culturally accepted through modern influences, right? Fucking, you look at Rogan taking mushrooms with celebrities, having interviews with them. A lot of popular artists now have references to psychedelia in their art, and they've got mushrooms all over their shit. I mean, I've got a mushroom jumper that says keep growing as well. So it's become more culturally accepted. The benefits of psychedelics as medicine is being increasingly popular, to the fact now that in certain areas globally, I think in the US, in some regions, I don't know if it's in Australia, but there's certainly some regions in the US that have decriminalized psychedelics. And now there are actual, university-funded, more formalized studies into the benefits of psychedelics for psychological benefit. So I'm not a fucking crackpot for trying this shit out. It's essentially what I'm doing and saying. I could be actually ahead of some people just by doing my own little tests and whatnot and, experimenting on myself. Not that I want to fucking blow myself up too much. I'm definitely not a psychologist, but hey, I'm not a bad therapist, I got to say. So maybe, if you're new to psychedelics, you're new to recreational drug use, this is not for you, okay? This is not for you. And I say that with all seriousness. Since my epiphany on psychedelics a few years ago, I have lost the ability or the desire to use psychedelics recreationally. And when I say psychedelics, I mean LSD or psilocybin, which is found in mushrooms. And that's the common compounds that are known as psychedelics in the recreational world. I can't take them for fun anymore because there is too much wisdom and there is too much benefit in a well-administered use of psychedelics for your mental health, for addressing psychological issues and maladies, and to find what ails you and what is, fucking you up mentally inside. So I take it very seriously. It's a very powerful tool. And because it is so powerful, it needs to be wielded with respect. And what I mean by that is, like I said, it's not for amateur drug users. It is not for people that have not taken psychedelics before. If you haven't even, if you're new to taking recreationals, go have some fun. Go into fucking space cadet training for a bit, right? Smoke, do whatever you want. But you definitely need to be comfortable being under the influence of psychedelics first to do these sorts of things. And maybe with that, maybe I'll backtrack a little bit to my history with using psychs recreationally. So with psychs, it must have been like 7-8 years ago. I tried to do acid once, got a tab off someone, didn't really do anything, saw a couple of shapes, that's it. Probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I started using psychedelics recreationally with some cousins of mine. Hello. Cousins that are listening, if they do listen and watch this. And we just did it for fun. We just thought we'd have a sesh, have a bit of fun, trip out. I was with my ex at the time. And the first one or two times I did it, it was a lot of fun. You see trippy colors, woo, things are moving. But I did feel these whispers of insight and, intrigue inside me whilst I was doing them. And then whilst I was going through a particularly dark time in my life, which was in the lead up to me breaking up with my partner and going on this journey, one particular trip, I did not feel great. I had a bad trip. I had all of these problems and all of these, whispers whilst I was under the influence just coming up, and I wasn't having fun. And, I was, just definitely distanced compared to the others who were just giggling and having a great time and look at all the colors, blah, blah, blah. So that's when I began to take seriously this inner knower, because I couldn't escape and shrug it off like I had done for many years by denying who I was and what I was capable of and what I truly and really felt, all that sort of stuff. Because really, one of the main benefits that I've found to psychedelics, and the reason why I use them in this way, is that they bypass the ego. And I said that before, didn't I? But yeah, so you can't bullshit yourself with whatever narrative you've got that you identify with as your ego when this shit comes up, right? It turns up the volume and all those whispers inside you about what you should be doing better for yourself. So that was happening. Those whispers sat with me, right? I knew something was not right. I knew that I was holding on to some shit. That gave me the pathway down to breaking up with my partner. And then, as I've talked about before, I had the epiphany whilst on LSD at Strawberry Fields a couple of years back. So when I had that epiphany and all this wisdom and all this information just came pouring out of me and all this insight came pouring out, I was like, oof, there is something in here. There is something that is speaking to me in this, right? And that sounds very hippy-dippy, I'm aware, but fuck it. Look where I am now, motherfuckers. Something's working. So since then, I was like, okay, I need to investigate this a little bit further. So what I thought I would do is, the first time I did it was 6 months, about 7 months after I had the epiphany. So this would be about June 2020, something like that. Freshly single, living on my own, depths of the pandemic. I used it as a way to check in on myself about all the changes that had happened in my life, because it was massive change, right? I was on this pathway to potentially getting married, having a single partner, just having one partner for 10 years, to having my own place, middle of a pandemic. I was fucking shredded. So I'd lost like 10, 15 kilos at that time, right? I had this huge paradigm shift in my existence. So I was like, wow, with all this shit that's going on, maybe it's worth me doing it again and seeing how I really feel about this healing process of getting past my ex and all that sort of stuff. So I did it, and it was a great experience, right? I ended up just talking at length to myself out loud, completely on my own, in my apartment. I had a bit of a vibe in there, colors, interesting music, right? And what I had done is I'd written a few questions out about what I wanted to get answered. What I might do, actually, let's reframe this part here, right? So let's talk about the process. See, that's my previous experiences. Let me talk to you about the process of what a psychedelic check-in is for me. So now what I do is I block out the world for a day. Phone, do not disturb, it's me, it's my time, right? Let's take a sidestep and let's create some frame here and some context. The three or four major parts of this, there's probably four, right? Is setting, intention, question, integration. Okay. So setting is what I was just talking about then, which is creating a space or being in a space where you feel comfortable to explore who you are in yourself. If you live alone, that's probably just chilling out in your own house, right? Making a vibe for yourself, being comfortable with the potential of what you're about to find out about you, and, not feeling insecure or, uncertain about the place you're in. You want to be doing this somewhere where you are comfortable in a space that's great for you. That's the setting, right? So for me, it was, just in my own house, in my own apartment. The most recent trip I did, I went to an Airbnb because I wanted a fucking break. And it was fucking nice, right? I was comfortable. That's all that matters. The setting was comfortable. It was just me. And that's all you need. Space for you to explore you, right? The next part is the intention. And the intention is basically setting the frame and the context of what you are about to receive at an intellectual level, at a spiritual level from this experience, okay? What is my intention here? And the intention for me is to discover me in more depth, answer some questions, and trust the knowledge I have about who I am past my ego to get answers to the questions that I've been asking myself for some period of time, and be receptive to that sacred knowledge so I can use it to help govern and shape my actions and my intentions and the things that I do over the next 6-ish months before my next check-in, right? So that's the intention part. And this is very important, the intention, when it comes to taking psychedelics in general, because the subconscious does take note of that. It does work in its favor. If you do not set an intention, you may not get as much out of the experience that you think. And intention is very important just in general, in any aspect of your life, but particularly with the psychedelic experience, setting an intention to receive knowledge, to receive wisdom, to receive insight is very important to setting up the space to explore. Okay? Once that I've done that intention, goes the psychedelic. So I've used mushrooms and LSD. I use LSD now as it'll be the main tool for these check-ins. And the reason why that is I find myself getting more knowledge and insight from LSD than I do from mushrooms. Mushrooms tend to connect me more with the earth. They tend to give me more. There is a much more natural element to it, right? So, taking a small dose of mushrooms and going by a river, I've done that a couple of times. Beautiful, relaxing, connects you with the earth, connects you with the outside world and the spiritual level of that world. LSD, I find, is more inward focused. Gives me a little bit more depth and insight and a bit of a clearer message and a clearer answer to what I want to ask myself. So that's why I've switched. I've done both. The mushrooms I didn't think necessarily gave me as much. Still a good experience nonetheless, but I think LSD works better for me to get what I want out of this. And then the questions, right? So these questions I ask are generally broader themes of things that I've been exploring and self-analyzing in my life over the last 6, 12, 18 months, whatever it is, the big questions, right? I always start with asking myself, how am I? How am I genuinely doing? Right? That's the key part of the check-in, right? Is to go, how am I actually doing here? Now, for the most part, always doing well. Always doing well. Last year was a bit of a tough period for obvious reasons, which I will talk about in a later rep, actually, because they're coming up to a bit of an anniversary of something quite significant. But yeah, question number one is always, how am I doing? How am I really doing? And there's a bit of insight. The answer was, yeah, I'm doing great. I'm fucking working heaps. I'm working hard. Lots of hours at the moment. But that's what I signed up for. That is the nature of the game. Basically running my own organization, trying to create a platform for myself as an individual creator is a child. And just like a newborn, right, 3 months in, that thing is crying and shitting itself and is completely reliant on me to manage itself and to survive. So sleepless nights, not a lot of rest, constantly keeping after it. That's the nature of the game, and that's fine, right? It does suck sometimes, but hey, I signed up for this, so whatever. So then checked in, how am I doing? And I probably set about 5 to 6 bigger questions, right? About what I think the key focuses need to be in the next iteration of growth, self-development, right? Whatever sphere of life I'm focusing on now. So again, I'll use my most recent check-in as an example. Some of the key questions that I asked myself were around, one was about ACN. What's the future of that? What direction do I need to take it now? There was questions around my own creative pursuits. So what do I need to do with some of the projects that I'm working on and this podcast as well? What should I be doing next with them? Another question, a big question I was asking myself was actually around my trauma in regards to mother wounds and challenges with the feminine. And to just scratch a little bit of the surface of that, obviously, there's everyone has a lot of core wounds in their life. And that a lot of those core wounds will usually stem from some sort of parental influence, because as children, our parents are our entire lives, and, any of their missteps, while may look small to them in the scale of things as children, because they're our entire lives, they can seem quite significant to us. So for me, right now, one of the core wounds that I'm dealing with is, mummy issues, right? And we've all got them. So dealing with and trying to analyze and work on my mummy issues and my mother issues and my mother wound, so I can have healthy relationships to the feminine and feminine people in my life, right? Because these core wounds, when it comes to the mother wound for men, impacts the way we interact with women, right? So it influences the way that I treat partners, how I speak to women, what I think their perspective is in relation to me. So that's what I'm working on at the moment, because I've recognized that I have deep trust issues when it comes to women, and some insecurities in that space. And we all do, right? I don't think it's anything particularly difficult or challenging. I haven't been abused or anything like that by my mum. It's just a matter of, she could have been there a little bit more for me, So I just got to work through that sort of stuff. So that's another of the core issues. What else was there? I think that's enough. Just because I can't really think of too much, and you get the point, right? You can just fill in your own big questions here. And you want these questions to be broad. You want them to be, you don't want to be very particular about these things, particularly if you're doing this for the first or second time, right? You want to say, for example, with ACN, it's like, where do I want to take ACN over the next 6 months, right? Very broad, sweeping question, not, is this the right thing? Is this singular thing the right thing to do? You want to keep it open because you want to have the expanse of that knowledge delivered to you through the experience. Okay, so keep these questions broad. 5 to 6 questions. Don't go too crazy with it, because, if you've got more than 6 problems in your life, you're probably going to need a lot more support than these check-ins to get them solved. You've done that. You ask your questions. And by the way, this is not just like me going gulp and then answering questions, right? I'm tripping balls for a good couple of hours first. I'm having fun with the acid. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting there going, very serious. Yes, sacred knowledge, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm tripping balls. I'm having a fucking lot of fun. What happened last week when I was out, had this nice, beautiful Airbnb, had a steam shower, had an inside spa. I was right next to a beach. So I dropped the acid, went to the beach, fucking loved just collecting stones and letting the waves wash over my feet and get connected back to nature, right? Feeling good. Went back inside, to my Airbnb, fucking just tripping balls, but in a great way, right? Making a bit of a mess. Went to the spa, hot spa, jets. I'm in there fucking just blissing out for a bit, right? So this is not just some serious fucking Hunter S. Thompson bullshit where I'm, just locked into a shitty hotel room surrounded by my own bullshit. I'm having a good time first, right? You still got to enjoy the trip. But as the trip sort of fades off past the the rainbows and the warped cool shit, it does fade down into that introspective part, right? And that's when you sort of ask yourself these questions. And you need to be prepared for that, right? There is always going to be an introspective part of your trip, and that's the best time to have those conversations with yourself. Past the peak, when you're a little bit more calm, when you're sort of riding it out, right? You don't need to be asking yourself the big questions whilst a fucking dragging is coming through the front wall, Pardon me. So you've done your questions. You've answered them truthfully. Some big shit may come up. I'm not going to deny it, right? Nothing huge has necessarily come up for me because I've been actively working on processes and I try and face the bullshit and the emotional dysregulation that I sense within myself pretty constantly. But if you're a newbie to this or someone that is in, probably in rampant denial of something major in your life, that could come up in a big way. And that's why having the right setting and a comfortable space to explore that and to face that fucking dragon that you're in denial of is important. So keep an eye out and an ear out for that, right? And then once you've asked your questions, and generally by this time, once I've answered all my questions, I'm chilling, right? All the shapes and all the cool shit's just, starting to fade away. And you get into the integration part of the process. This is part 4. And if you've taken psychedelics before, you would know there's this perspective of the afterglow. Generally after psychedelics, you don't have a come down, which is great. But you do get this nice new sheen and appreciation for life, particularly if you've had a good trip and you've gotten something beneficial out of it. Generally, I find myself a little bit calmer, a little bit more connected to people and things. And it's nice, right? It's a nice little way to end the session, to have this new, I wouldn't say lease on life, but this fresh direction and perspective of where you're taking yourself. It's very, very useful. And it's quite nice. And then the integration process lasts basically ongoing, really. Because if you've answered those questions in the right way, it gives you some directive. It gives you things to work on, right? Maybe you need to ask someone for help. Maybe you go to a therapist and sort of filter through your bullshit and filter through those answers. Maybe you have to find a relevant expert in your field that you've got questions around. Maybe you have to change your behaviors in relation to a particular problem. So it gives you a lot more direction as to how to address the problems in your life. And that is, and ideally that should not just be a temporary thing. You should be iterating and improving on those using the guidance that you've received, until it's time for the next check-in. Maybe you do it annually as opposed to every 6 months. I wouldn't do it more. I wouldn't recommend doing it every 3 months. I think 6 months, twice a year is pretty good, because generally to make real progress in the bigger problems in your life, it's going to take a lot more than 3 months to sort this shit out. Particularly if you're getting into the deeper problems in your own shit, some of this stuff has been in there in your psyche since childhood. So for me, that's 20, 25 years, right? You can't just undo 25 years of damage in 3 months. And even now, right, the reprogramming of your subconscious takes a long time, particularly as the deeper into the wounds that you go, your core wounds, your core beliefs, right? Like I said, I've been lean for almost 2 years, 2+ years now. But that little fatty, the little fatty mindset still sits in there from time to time, and I catch it out. So that just shows you how much difference there is in the value of changing your physical world and your external world versus your internal one. And this tool is a potent, useful tool to do that. All right. Yeah, I think that's basically about it. So to summarize, guys, Psychedelic Check-In, very potent tool for self-analysis and self-observation and self-actualization. Gives you a great North Star and a great guiding star to where you should be redirecting your efforts to self-actualize and work on yourself. Not for newbies, right? You need to get a bit of experience under the belt with psychedelics and recreationals and focus on those 4 things: setting, intention, questions, and then integration. Okay? I'm not the only one doing this sort of shit, right? If you look up setting intention on Google, you'll get a lot of articles on frontier psychiatry using psychedelics. Like I said, the hippies have been doing this for some time. It just hasn't been popularized until now because it's the generational switch in our behaviors towards drugs has changed that. So check it out. If you've got any questions in relation to it, I'm here as always to answer any questions, give feedback, give advice, reach out to me. And yeah, have fun with it, guys. Have fun with it because, potent. A very, very useful tool in the arsenal. So much so that I've actually, and not to give away too much, I have had other experts in psychology reach out to me about how I do my process. That's how frontier this stuff is, which is a very big compliment given that I have no psychology background. All right, that's the most indiscriminate way I can mention that because I want to protect the identity of the people that have asked me about these questions because, again, it is still not fully regarded in the psychology space as a beneficial tool. Not that they're fucking checking this podcast out, but if you do, hello. And that's the pod, gang. That is the pod for another week. A nice little solo, I was going to say tirade, but that's not the point. It's not a tirade. It's insightful. Got a bit rambly, but hey, you should be used to that by now. You know where to find me, guys. Hit up Aussie Comedy Network for all your comedy daily. Lots going on. I shouldn't have to say to like, share, subscribe, but I would really appreciate it if you did nonetheless. In the next coming weeks, I've got some very interesting people lined up to have conversations with. People have been coming and reaching out to be on the pod, which is very, very nice. It's nice to get some momentum and people are noticing the fun, unique, interesting work that I'm doing here. And I thank you, dear listeners, for being a part of it. I've been Jameel Raymond. Thank you very much, Bingers, and we will see you next week. Ciao for now.